Hey everyone, it's Ivan, kitbadger.com, here to bring you another gun review. And today, talking about this little guy, which is the Sugar Weasel by Q. Let's go ahead and start with, what is a Sugar Weasel? It's basically a drop gun if you happen to be carrying a honey badger as your primary, or not. More or less, it is the poor man's honey badger, and there is definitely some magic that is carried over from this to this. I will caution you, do not Google Sugar Weasel. Some things you cannot unsee. While there are definitely some differences between this and the honey badger, some of the magic which makes both the honey badger as well as the Sugar Weasel a great suppressor host, they have in common. Basically from the barrel nut forward. Right here we have a 6-inch M-LOK handguard, clear anodized, and at the heart of it we have a 7-inch 1-in-5 twist 300 Blackout barrel. Additionally, we have adjustable low pro gas block, which you can access right here through the handguard with Allen key. A tapered barrel with Q's cherry bomb, which is their muzzle device. That alone, honestly, if you've dealt with other suppressors, all different methods of putting them on, whether direct thread, otherwise, this is magic. Once you use this, you get pretty spoiled. But that right there is the similarities this has with the honey badger. Past that, we got a lot of stuff different. As we get into the differences, moving back from that barrel nut, obviously just at a glance, while the color's the same, clear anodized, the receiver set's different. This uses a M16 spec forged upper and lower receiver with no forward assist. For those of you that are diehard forward assist fans, I will touch on that later. Rarely have I ever actually missed having it there. But past that, as we come down, this actually features a 90-degree selector rather than the shorter throw, the radian that's used on the honey badger. And while yes, this does actually have the Geisley, I believe it's their super dynamic enhanced trigger in here, which the honey badger ships with. This actually ships with the ALG trigger. It is a great, I believe it's the ALG enhanced. Great trigger, made probably on the same machine that's making this Geisley trigger, under the same roof, and it's a single stage, really nice, clean trigger. I happen to have switched this out because I use this for a bunch of competition. Just wanted a lighter trigger, personal preference. But moving back from there, we have a mil-spec bolt carrier group, and then up here, while this is more or less a mil-spec charging handle, it too is clear anodized. Same with the buffer tube this uses. And this has a custom SBA3 brace made specifically for Q by SB Tactical. And those largely are the differences in this versus the honey badger. All of that being said, where did my experience with honey badger start? Well, it actually started with a conversation with Kevin over at Q, and I said, hey, I'm looking for a short, compact 5.56 to basically be able to shoot and compete with in the tactical games. I'm gonna be running a bunch of the tactical games this coming year in 2019. And he said, you know what? We actually have something slated. It's going to be 300 Blackout, but we could probably make you a 5.56 upper for it. And I was like, sweet, let's do this thing. It was pretty much already on the book. So initially I started with a prototype 5.56 Sugar Weasel built off of actually basically an old Blim honey badger receiver set. And it had basically a prototype SBA3 brace on it. Everything was kind of prototype. Barrel was cut down. It was a 5.56 barrel cut down to like 12 3/4 inches, longer handguard rail. And I ran it. Gave them feedback. I'm like, this thing is awesome. And as they progressed with what would ultimately be the Sugar Weasel, it got more refined. And I actually ended up with this Sugar Weasel, serial number 1, pretty cool. And finally, when it got to the production of these, I ended up with this to include this 7-inch 300 Blackout upper receiver for it. And while because of caliber restrictions, I've shot this gun like lower receiver a ton in competition, on the range, doing all kinds of other stuff. I will probably touch on that, the 5.56 version of this, in another video. But I have absolutely put in my time with this 300 Blackout version as well. Outside of range sessions, where have I put in a lot of time with this? Honestly, in a NVG course. Set up in this configuration right here. And during that course, I ended up putting close to about 1,000 rounds through this, 500 or so, both subsonic and supersonic. So about 500 or so, 200 and 220 grain from Minuteman munitions, and then about 500, 125 grain supersonic by Gorilla ammunition. And this did incredible in this configuration during that course. It is really light, points really well, really handy. Everyone I let shoot this thing was just like, damn, that is incredibly light and quiet. Why do I have like a 20-pound boat anchor hanging off of me? And I've been really pleased shooting this pistol. Where else have I put in time with this little guy? Down in Texas, Shootin Pigs with Todd Huey of Lone Star Boars. I actually ended up shooting my first pig, actually first couple pigs with this Sugar Weasel. First one, we ended up spotting a couple boars out tearing up this field, and went out there, got as close as we could under nods. At that point, threw up our shooting sticks and switched to thermals. First shot actually was the shot that killed it, but this thing did not want to die. First one though, straight through, carotid.
I've been looking for a way out, I can't find my way now, I just need you by my side. Lately I've been thinking, baby, we could get away and never look back, 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 never look back.
Later that night, we got on a group of pigs, took this guy out, got set up for that first shot, real nice and clean, headshot, dropped, and then started getting after the rest of them. Right there, I ended up with a malfunction. You're like, what? How could you have a malfunction? I will say, the only malfunctions I've had with this have been basically ammo or magazine related, or kind of user related. So we'll go ahead and speak to ammo. I've had issues with, actually that time, I was shooting subsonic expanding hollow points, and it actually got jammed up on the feed ramp. If I had a forward assist, would that have helped me? No, it would have exacerbated the problem. Other issues I've ran into have just been as far as different magazines. 300 Blackout, it's fickle. Some stuff, it'll work fine in some 5.56 mags, other ones, not so much. Like Tango Down mags, for example. They've worked great for 5.56 for me, and 300 Blackout, no. And I mean, if you read on them, they're like, no, these are not made for 300 Blackout. Most of your 300 Blackout magazines, especially the Magpul ones, I've found do a really good job. Some of the like OK Industries, stuff like that, do a pretty good job. But I have occasionally ran into issues with magazines, or like I said, ammo, and user error, basically. I don't clean my guns, so I will shoot this thing until it doesn't want to go back into bat. Like 500 rounds later of shooting suppressed exclusively and just adding oil to the bolt carrier, and eventually there's sludge in there. And I will put in a magazine, I will drop the bolt, and it won't go into battery. Would a forward assist help me there? Yeah, so would weapon maintenance. Like, I rarely have found a forward assist to be advantageous, because like I was speaking to, I will open this thing up, pull the bolt out, and wipe just like sludge off of it, put some more lube on it and throw it back in, and keep shooting it for, I don't know, another 400 or 500 rounds until it starts getting sluggish, and I'm like, I should probably wipe the bolt off because it's pretty disgusting. But as far as mechanically anything like that, no issues with it. Which brings us to accuracy. What kind of accuracy have I got out of this? Well, to kind of try and get the best I could out of it, I ended up pulling the upper receiver off, throwing this guy on a Atlas bipod, and then dropping it onto a SBR lower receiver I have. That lower receiver has a B5 SOP mod stock, and it also has the Tango down switch grip, which I like to put vertical for accuracy shooting. And then on top of that, it has a Velocity Systems, I believe it's a 3-pound single stage trigger. With that, I ended up going out to the range, and these are the results that I got shooting it. All 5-shot groups were shot at 100 yards. Using the S&B subsonic 200 grain, I ended up with a group measuring 2.34 MOA, and another group measuring 2.8 MOA. With Hornady Black 208 grain AMAX, I had a group measuring 2.68 MOA. And another group measuring 2.99 MOA. Using the Minuteman Munitions 200 grain subsonic, I had a group measuring 2.01 MOA. And my second group measuring 1.42 MOA. Switching over to the Minuteman Munitions 220 grain subsonic, I had a group measuring 1.48 MOA. And my second group measuring 1.42 MOA. After that, I hopped over to some supersonic using the Gorilla Ammunition 125 grain Sierra Match Kings. Had a group measuring 2.38 MOA. And the second group measuring 1.72 MOA. With the Sig Sauer 125 grain Supersonics, one group measured 2.01 MOA, and my second group measured 4.64 MOA. Obviously, significantly less if it wasn't for that flyer. I then shot some 110 grain Noveski, made for them by a nozzler, measuring 2.18 MOA. My second group measuring 1.85 MOA. I also shot some S&B 124 grain, measuring 3.37 MOA. And another group measuring 2.51 MOA. With respect to those groups, what are my thoughts? Honestly, I'm really pleased. We're talking about a 7-inch 300 Blackout barrel, and especially subsonic with that Minuteman Munitions, that stuff did amazing in this. It goes back to use case though. Am I gonna use this to go shoot bullseye matches? Absolutely not. Home defense all day long. Shooting pigs, sure, why not? This absolutely performs within the acceptable scope of accuracy for my intended role as far as how I would actually use this. Where does that put us? The honey badger or the sugar weasel? Well, since it's America, I would suggest you just buy both. But if you had to choose, I don't know. A lot of the magic in this, honestly, is the barrel, the gas system, everything like that. These both shoot really soft, that adjustable gas block, amazing with subsonic and with the cans on here, respectively the Trash Panda and the Thunder Chicken. Personally, I think I like the Thunder Chicken better. It's a little bit longer, a tiny bit heavier, but definitely a little bit quieter. As far as the shooting experience between the two, I think The biggest thing you will notice is dependent on your personal shooting style. If you shoot nose to charging handle, this will pretty much be like any other like AR pistol, something along those lines. If you do not, and your face is further back, you might find this a little more conducive to that shooting style. But yeah, they're both incredible guns. This one I definitely feel could honestly just go on your wall. It's pretty much an art piece. It's amazing. And part of it is the billet receiver set. The way the brace telescopes out, all that stuff, which is consequently a lot of time on machines, which is why you see a significant difference between prices between the Sugar Weasel and the Honey Badger. At the end of the day, honestly, you really can't go wrong with either one. If the Sugar Weasel is within your grasp, whereas maybe the Honey Badger isn't, I would encourage you to pick it up. They are rad and a ton of fun. Not to mention, really easy to shoot. So easy, in fact, a 9-year-old could shoot this thing.
Oh, nice hit. Nice. Nice.
Not to mention, even an 8-year-old can shoot this thing.
You got this. Take your time. Nice hit.
Depending on where you are, if you don't want to go down the road or you legally can't go down the road of owning silencers, I've shot this a lot bare muzzled on the Honey Badger, and I'll be honest, as soon as you get this thing out of the box, take it to the range, start shooting it, it is so much fun. Once you start shooting it suppressed, you're like, I don't really want to shoot this bare muzzled anymore. I would suggest picking up one of the whistle tips. These do a great job, basically a blast forwarding device, and screw this thing on its cherry bomb, and it's gonna put most of the concussion, everything like that forward. It definitely makes it more pleasant, but I'll be honest, first day you take this home, it doesn't matter if you have this on it or not, it's gonna be a ton of fun to shoot. If you're looking at picking up a Sugar Weasel, I would encourage you to do so. These things are rad, they are a ton of fun to shoot. MSRP is just south of $1,600. You can get them directly through Q, as well as a number of other places such as Shooting Surplus. But if you pick one up and have experience with it, let me know how it's done for you. And as always, thanks for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Pick me back up just a thought.